Hello, and welcome to When Life Gets Tough, a podcast that tackles timely and relevant mental health topics in an easy-to-understand way for all. I'm your host, kcurtis. I'd like to start today with a brief note that our episode may include content around suicide. If you think that these conversations might trigger you, please use discretion when listening. As always, our counselors are available 24/7 if you're having thoughts of suicide or need support. The crisis line can be reached at 319-362-2174 or simply call 988. Today we have special guest and Foundation 2 Crisis Services employee, Lejla Ford. Lejla is our Mobile Crisis Outreach Program Manager. Thank you for taking the time to join us, Lejla.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start today by asking a little bit about your personal journey and why Foundation 2 Crisis Services is a good fit for you. I know you've been through some pretty remarkable stuff and demonstrated a lot of resiliency. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I was born in Bosnia. I moved to the States when I was about 12 years old. I've lived here ever since. I am a survivor of genocide, and so while I was in Bosnia, I stayed at like 2 refugee camps during my time there, which was a pretty significant component of my upbringing and taught me a lot about humanity. It's really shaped my view of how I relate to people in a lot of ways, and it's taught me a lot about how even like in the worst of times, people really come together to survive and really make things work, even in the most of crisis situations.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know when we were offline and I learned about that story in your past, I was so mesmerized and again, just like, wow, she's so resilient and taking those experiences and turning them into, life service, working for a nonprofit in mental health services, I just think is so cool. So thank you for sharing that. Can you share a little bit about what is mobile crisis? And we usually call mobile crisis MCO internally, just to make it social lovers or social workers love acronyms. So what is MCO?
Yeah, Mobile Crisis Outreach is a team of experienced and trained counselors who go out in the community when anyone is having a crisis related to mental health. And what we do is we respond within an hour of calls, and we meet our clients in their home, in the community, at businesses, at schools. And what we do is we try to support them with by offering resources, counseling, and just meeting them where they are and offering any kind of help that they need.
Awesome. And I know that there are, most of the time or under all circumstances, can you define 2 counselors go? When do 2 counselors go? When would 1 counselor go? Why do you guys send 2 counselors?
Sure. So we send 2 counselors every time unless we are responding to like a hospital call or maybe even a school call. So if it's in a setting, like a systemic setting, then we would have 1 counselor respond. If we are responding to the home or a community, then we would always send 2 counselors. And that's for multiple reasons. It is really beneficial to have 2 people there. Sometimes when we respond, there's family members that also need support with a situation. And so we are able to kind of divide and conquer. The other reason is kind of related to safety and really just counselors having support in each other.
You mentioned the hospital. Why would MCO counselors go to the hospital?
We respond to hospital calls when there is a patient that might need additional support when they're getting discharged. They might be needing a crisis bed. And so we will go to the hospital to assess that. There are some hospitals like Regional Medical Center that does not have any mental health professionals within their facility. And so they do rely on us to provide that service.
Another thing I'm curious to learn a little bit more about, you said experienced counselors. What are the expectations or credentialing that goes along with being a mobile crisis outreach counselor?
So what's really cool about our team is that all of our counselors are part-time, and many of them are local mental health professionals in some capacity or teachers or work within this field during the day, and they kind of moonlight for us. And so they all come with their own unique set of experiences and education and training backgrounds. Um, and then on top of that, they receive really an extensive training through our program in order to be able to provide counseling services, in order to intervene with clients who are experiencing thoughts of suicide.
But what's the best way for someone to connect with MCO services?
People can call 988. And if counseling over the phone or text or chat isn't enough and they really would benefit from someone coming to their home and speaking to someone face to face, then they can request that, and we will come out and meet with them.
So, what kinds of calls would be a good fit for mobile crisis outreach? Where do you guys find that you're most helpful to folks?
Yeah, and that's such a broad question because crisis looks different for a lot of people. And so we respond to really most calls that come to us that where someone is needing some in-person support, and that could look all kinds of ways. And there isn't necessarily like a best case that would support any one individual. It could be something like a family is struggling with a child who's having behavioral issues. It could be someone who has lost their partner and is experiencing grief and depression. It could be someone is having a panic attack. It could really be anything. And so there are really no limits to what we will respond to, with the exception of we want to make sure that everyone can be safe and medical intervention isn't required.
I appreciate that extra information. I think one of the maybe misconceptions is I'm not a good fit for a mobile crisis outreach dispatch, or I'm not a good fit for the crisis line. So hearing you talk about how many people that is actually an appropriate fit for, and the diversity and the kinds of calls is really helpful for our audience to hear. So in addition to your role at Foundation 2 Crisis Services as a program manager for mobile crisis outreach, you also just became an applied suicide intervention skills trainer. What is ASIST training? How can people get involved? Who do you train? I'm curious to learn more.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. We provide training to agencies, organizations, businesses. We travel all throughout the state of Iowa. It's a 2-day training that is pretty interactive for people, and kind of provides some practical skills in terms of how to respond to individuals, whether they be family or coworkers or clients who might be experiencing thoughts of suicide.
We will have a community-based ASIST training coming up on January 5th and 6th. So we'll leave some information about that training in the comments of the podcast. If you're interested in participating, it will occur in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, likely at the downtown Cedar Rapids Library for anyone who wants to be a part of that class. We can have up to 30 participants in the class. And in addition to that, it is available to anyone who is 16 and older who wants to be a part of building a community safer from suicide. Are there any other pieces of information or things about our services at Foundation 2 that you would like people to know?
Yeah, actually, one of the things I've learned when I came on board is all of the wonderful things that we do. I think I wasn't even aware entirely of all the services that we provide, but one of the services I'm really excited about is the crisis stabilization and community-based services, which is new to us. We've implemented it this year. And what it is really an extension of our mobile crisis outreach program in a more interactive way and more intensive support to people who might need something more than just a response in the immediate moment of crisis. We receive our referrals through the mobile crisis outreach team, who might meet with people in the community and identify that they might need someone to follow up with them, maybe work on some goals to stabilize them in their homes so that we can avoid hospitalizations. And so we provide counseling and a connection to resources, and also the clients get to work with a licensed mental health professional during that period. It's a service that's provided anywhere from 3 to 5 days. So it's very short term and intensive, and we've seen some really, really awesome things with it so far.
Thanks for sharing. If people are interested in receiving that service, how can they connect?
So it's connected through our mobile crisis outreach service. So if they have a mobile crisis outreach counselor go out to their home and they feel like they would benefit from a little bit more follow-up, they can ask for that service or request it.
Thanks so much again, Lejla, for your time today. As always, if you or someone you care about needs mental health support, Foundation 2 Crisis Services is here for you 24/7, every single day of the year. All of our services are free and confidential. You can call the crisis line at 319-362-2174, or again, you can reach 988. Thank you again for listening to When Life Gets Tough. We hope you will join us next time.